I'm Jennifer, 30, female. I live in a comfortable 3-bedroom suburban house, the kind with a manicured lawn and a 2-car garage. I'm a marketing manager at a mid-sized tech firm, a job I genuinely enjoy and am good at. For the past 5 years, I've been married to Mark, a 32-year-old software engineer. Our life on the surface was the picture of modern success. We were the couple people envy, attractive, professionally successful, and, I thought, deeply in love. But that picture was about to be torn to shreds. It all started with a man named David, and an ultimatum that would expose the rotten foundation our perfect life was built on. Before this story unfolds, I'd love to connect with you. Please let me know in the comments where you're watching from and what time it is in your corner of the world. It's amazing to see how far these stories can travel. Mark and I met in our mid-20s. He was ambitious, smart, and had a quick wit that I found incredibly charming. I was building my career in marketing, and he was rising through the ranks at a software company. We dated for 2 years and had what I'd call a storybook wedding. Our life together was busy, but we made it work. We had date nights every Friday, we saved jointly for vacations, and we talked about starting a family in the next year or two. We had our routines, our inside jokes, and a shared group of friends. It was stable, it was comfortable. About 6 months ago, Mark mentioned a new friend, David. He's a graphic designer. Mark explained, we met through that new mobile game I've been playing online. It seemed harmless enough. I'm not a jealous person. I have male friends from work and college. I believed in trusting my partner. At first, David was just a name I heard mentioned. David thinks this. David suggested that. Then, the texting became more frequent. Mark's phone, which used to be left casually on the kitchen counter, was now always in his pocket or face down on the nightstand, and when I'd ask who he was texting so late, he'd just say, "Oh, just David, we're planning a raid for the game." It was a plausible excuse, and I let it go. But a small, nagging feeling started to grow in the back of my mind. The late-night gaming sessions got longer, and sometimes Mark wouldn't come to bed until 2 or 3 in the morning. When he did, he smelled faintly of cologne, which I found odd for someone who was supposedly just playing a video game in our home office, but I pushed the doubts down. I loved my husband, and I trusted him. I told myself I was being paranoid. After all, we had a perfect marriage. The breaking point came on a Tuesday evening. It was our designated no-tech night, a rule we'd made to reconnect. I was making pasta, and Mark was supposed to be setting the table. Instead, he was standing in the living room, staring at his phone with a small, private smile on his face. He was typing furiously. "Mark," I called out, trying to keep the irritation from my voice. "No, tech night, remember." He looked up, and the smile vanished, replaced by a look of annoyance. "Right, sorry, just a second." But he didn't put the phone away. I walked over and saw the name David on his screen. "Mark, seriously, it's been non-stop with this guy, can't it wait?" He sighed, a deep, exasperated sound, and finally locked his phone. He turned to me, his expression cold. "Jen, we need to talk about David." My heart did a weird flip. "Okay." I said slowly, "What about him? He's really important to me." Mark began, his eyes not quite meeting mine. "He's more than just a gaming buddy. He's my best friend." I was taken aback. "Best friend? You've only known him for 6 months, Mark. What about your friends from college?" He waved a hand dismissively. "They don't get me, not like David does." He took a breath, and his next words felt like a physical blow. "I want him to be a bigger part of our life. I want him to come over for dinner, hang out with us on weekends, maybe even come on vacation with us." I stared at him, bewildered. "Mark, that's a lot. I don't even know this guy." "That's the problem," he snapped. "You're not even trying, you're being hostile." "I'm not being hostile, I'm confused. Your relationship with him feels intense. It's making me uncomfortable." And then he said it. The words that changed everything. He reached into his briefcase, pulled out a set of folded documents, and put them on the kitchen counter. They were divorce papers. "Look, Jennifer," he said, his voice flat. "David is a non-negotiable part of my life. I've already signed them." He paused, and a chillingly calm smile spread across his face. "So you have a choice. You either accept my male friend, accept him fully into our lives, no questions asked, or we break up. Those are the terms." I was frozen. The smell of garlic and tomatoes from the stove was suddenly nauseating. Divorce papers, he had them ready. This wasn't a spur of the moment argument. This was a premeditated threat. "You're serious?" I whispered, my hands trembling. "You would divorce me over a friend. He's not just a friend." Mark repeated, his smile still in place. It was the smile that broke me. It wasn't a smile of sadness or regret. It was a smile of power. He thought he had me backed into a corner, accept him or sign. He said, "You have until the end of the week to decide." With that, he grabbed his keys and walked out the door, leaving me alone in the kitchen with the simmering pasta sauce and the divorce papers that represented the end of my world as I knew it. I didn't cry. Not at first. I was in shock. I sank onto a kitchen stool, staring at the papers. My husband had just given me an ultimatum: accept his new, mysterious best friend or lose my marriage. The casual way he presented it, the smile, the prepared documents. It all screamed that there was so much more to this story. My mind, trained in marketing to find patterns and analyze data, kicked into gear. Who was David? Why was he so important that Mark would risk his 5-year marriage for him? The nagging feeling I'd had for months erupted into a full-blown siren. I knew with sickening certainty that David was not just a friend. The ultimatum wasn't a choice, it was a cover-up, and I was going to find out exactly what it was covering. My first call was to my best friend Sarah. She's a 30-year-old lawyer, and she's the most level-headed person I know. I explained the situation, my voice breaking as I relayed the conversation, the smile, the papers. "Jen," she said, her voice sharp and focused. "First, don't sign anything. Second, he's bluffing, but not in the way you think. He wants you to sign. The ultimatum is a power move. He's trying to control the narrative." "But why?" I sobbed. "Why, David?" "That," she said, "is what we're going to find out. Do you know anything about this guy, a last name, where he works?" I realized with a jolt that I knew almost nothing. Mark just said he's a graphic designer. They met playing a game. "Okay, that's a start," Sarah said. "We need to get access to information. Do you share any accounts, phone bills, bank accounts?" "Yes. We had a joint checking account, and our phone plan was a family one, all under my name since I got a better corporate discount." The fog of shock began to clear, replaced by a cold, hard resolve. That night, I didn't sleep. I waited until Mark sent a text saying he was staying at David's. To clear his head, of course he was. I went into our home office and booted up the computer. My first stop was the phone bill. I logged into our family plan account. My heart was pounding so hard I could hear it in my ears. I pulled up the latest bill and scrolled down to Mark's number. The call and text log was pages long. And there it was, one number, repeated over and over, dozens of texts a day, long calls late at night. The number wasn't saved under David. In fact, there was no David in his contacts at all. There was, however, a D. M. I did a quick reverse search on the number. The number was registered to a David Mason. A quick social media search for David Mason, graphic designer in our city, brought up a professional profile. The profile picture was of a smiling, handsome man around Mark's age. But as I scrolled through his public photos, my blood ran cold. There were pictures of him at a bar. The same bar Mark had claimed he went to for work drinks 2 weeks prior. There was a photo of him at the park, holding a coffee cup from our local cafe. Timestamped on a Wednesday afternoon when Mark had taken a long lunch. And then I found it, a photo from 7 months ago, long before Mark had even met David online. It was a picture from a design conference. In the background, unmistakable, was my husband, Mark, with his arms slung casually around David's shoulders. They were both laughing. This wasn't a new friendship. This wasn't a gaming buddy. This was a long-term calculated lie. They hadn't met 6 months ago. They had known each other for much longer. The online game story was a complete fabrication, a story created to slowly introduce David's presence into our lives. I felt sick. I dug deeper. I logged into our joint bank account. Mark had been making regular, small withdrawals. Cash, $2, 100 here, $3, 100 there. It was classic hiding behavior, but he'd gotten sloppy. One charge from 3 weeks ago wasn't cash. It was a charge at a high-end restaurant on the other side of town, a restaurant I'd wanted to go to for my birthday, but Mark had said was too expensive. The charge was for $450 on a Tuesday night. I went to the restaurant's social media page and checked their tagged photos for that date, and there they were. A public photo posted by another diner showed Mark and David in the background, sitting at a romantic table for two, sharing a bottle of wine. They were holding hands across the table. My husband wasn't just friends with David. He was in a relationship with him. The ultimatum wasn't about me accepting a friend. It was a cruel, cowardly attempt to see if I would be naive enough to accept his lover into our home, or if I would be the one to end the marriage, making me the bad guy who wasn't understanding. The rage came next. It was a cold, purifying anger that burned away my tears and shock. He had insulted my intelligence. He had tried to gaslight me into accepting his affair. He had smiled while handing me divorce papers he'd prepared. He wants to break up. I said out loud to the empty room, "Fine, we'll break up, but we're going to do it on my terms, not his." I called Sarah back. "It's an affair." I said, my voice steady. "I have proof, photos, phone logs, bank statements." "Good," Sarah said, her lawyer voice on. "Now we plan. He gave you a deadline, we're going to use it." The plan was simple but brutal. Mark had given me a choice, accept or sign. He wanted me to sign the papers he'd provided. I pulled them out and read them. They were a standard, no-fault divorce filing, but the asset division was interesting. He had proposed a 50/50 split of our joint accounts and the house. But I knew for a fact he had a private savings account and a stock portfolio his parents had set him up with, which he'd always referred to as his money that, under our state's laws, was now marital property. His proposal was a lowball offer designed to get him out quick and clean, leaving me with far less than I was entitled to. He was counting on me being emotional and just wanting it to be over. He had miscalculated. Over the next 3 days, I became a machine. Sarah guided me through every step. First, I opened a new bank account in my name. I used our joint account to pay all the upcoming bills for the month, mortgage, utilities, everything. Then, I transferred exactly 50% of the remaining balance to my new account. I printed every bank statement, every phone bill, every social media photo I had found. I compiled it all into a neat, organized folder. I took photos of all our valuable assets, the art, the furniture, the electronics. I also took photos of his expensive gaming setups and the design awards David had apparently given him, which were hidden in his office. I was documenting everything. I also did something Mark would never expect. I didn't cry, I didn't yell, I was pleasant. When he came home to talk, I was calm. "I'm still thinking, Mark." I told him, my voice soft. "It's a big decision. You've really thrown me." This confused him. My lack of hysterics put him on edge. He wanted a fight, but I gave him compliance. "Just think about how great it could be," he said, trying to sell me on the idea. "David is a great guy. We could all be a family." I had to physically stop myself from throwing up. "I'm thinking." I repeated, I was buying time. Sarah was filing our own divorce petition, one that listed adultery as the cause and included a full and accurate accounting of all our assets, including his private accounts. The end of the week arrived Friday. Mark came home from work, that same arrogant, confident smile on his face. "So, Jennifer," he said, like a boss starting a performance review, "have you made your decision?" "I have," I said. I was sitting at the dining room table. In front of me were 2 stacks of paper. One was the set of divorce papers he had given me. The other was the petition Sarah had filed. "Good," he said, sitting opposite me, already reaching for his papers. "I'm glad you're being sensible." "I'm not signing your papers, Mark." His smile faltered. "What, Jen?" we agreed. "No, you gave me an ultimatum, but you forgot to tell me the truth." I pushed my folder across the table. "Who's David Mason, Mark?" His face went white. He opened the folder. The first thing he saw was the restaurant photo. His hand started to shake. He flipped the page, the phone logs, the bank statements, the 7-month old conference photo. "You're not best friends," I said, my voice dangerously quiet. "You're in a relationship, and you have been for almost a year." Mark was speechless. He just stared at the proof, his mask of a cool, progressive husband, shattering. You spied on me," he stammered. "You lied to me," I shot back. "You tried to manipulate me. You brought your lover into our lives under the guise of a friend, and then had the audacity to hand me divorce papers, expecting me to just move over and make room for him. It's not like that." He protested, but his voice was weak. "Save it," I said, sliding the new set of papers toward him. "This is what's happening. These are my divorce papers. They were filed this morning. They cite adultery and list every single asset you forgot to include in your version, including your private stock portfolio." He looked at the document, and his eyes went wide. "You can't do this." "I just did." I stood up. "Our state is a 50/50 state, Mark, but now that we have proof of adultery and of you actively trying to hide marital assets, my lawyer seems to think a judge will be very interested in our story. You wanted me to sign. Here's your turn. You've been served." I pointed to the door. And Mark, I want you out tonight. Your best friend David has an apartment, doesn't he? Go stay there. I'm sure he'll be happy to have you." He looked at me, his eyes filled with a rage I had never seen. This was not the man I married. This was a cornered animal, but I wasn't scared. I was in control. He grabbed the papers, crumpled the restaurant photo in his fist, and stormed out, slamming the door so hard one of our wedding photos fell off the wall and shattered. It felt appropriate. The divorce was, in a word, messy. Mark tried to fight. He tried to claim I was unstable. He tried to claim his portfolio was a premarital asset. It wasn't. But I had Sarah, and I had the truth. The proof of his lies was undeniable. The judge was, as Sarah predicted, very interested in the fact that he had presented me with fraudulent divorce papers while trying to hide assets. In the end, I got the house. I got my 50% of all marital assets, including his precious stocks, and I got my freedom. Mark and David, they moved in together. I see them around town sometimes. They always look miserable. The thrill of the forbidden affair, it seems, doesn't translate well to the mundane reality of paying bills and taking out the trash. Their relationship was built on a lie, and it seems that's all it had. Sarah and I, on the other hand, took that vacation we'd always talked about. I redecorated the house, painting over the neutral beige Mark had insisted on with bright, bold colors that I loved. I excelled at work, earning a promotion to senior marketing director. It's been a year now. Rebuilding my life wasn't easy. There were nights of crying, of feeling foolish, of wondering how I could have missed the signs. But that night, the night he gave me the ultimatum, he didn't just break our marriage, he woke me up. He showed me exactly who he was, and in doing so, he showed me who I could be without him. Strong, resilient, and unwilling to accept anything less than I deserve. He wanted me to accept his male friend or break up. In the end, I did neither. I exposed his lie, took back my life, and let him break himself.